The soil remembers everything, every drop of rain that never came, every seed that refused to sprout, every prayer whispered into the wind during the summer of 1956. This is the story of what happened when the sky stopped answering. 10 families, 1 piece of land, 70 years of refusing to give up. The Turner farm sat on 840 acres of Oklahoma red dirt, land that had fed 1 family since 1891. By 1956, it belonged to James Turner, a third-generation farmer who believed in honest work and the promises of spring. He had a wife, Margaret, 3 children, and a mortgage that felt heavier every year. That spring, the rain never came. April passed, then May. The wheat that should have been knee-high stood withered and brown, like matchsticks waiting to burn. The cattle grew thin. The well dropped 6 feet in 3 weeks. James Turner walked his fields every evening, watching his future turn to dust. By June, he knew the truth. The farm was dying, and with it, everything his grandfather had built. But James Turner wasn't alone in his suffering. Across the county, 9 other farms faced the same impossible choice: sell everything and leave, or stay and watch it all disappear. What happened next changed everything. On a Thursday evening in late June, James Turner did something he had never done before. He invited his neighbors to his barn, not for a celebration, not for a church gathering, for a conversation about survival. They came because they had no other choice. 10 families, sitting on hay bales in a barn that smelled of diesel and desperation. The Johnsons, the Reeves, the Callahans, the Merritt family, the Hendersons, the Polk family, the Vaughns, the Driscoll family, the Ketchums, and the Turners. James Turner stood in the center and spoke the truth no one wanted to hear. "We're all dying separately," he said. "Maybe we survive together." The silence that followed was heavy with doubt. These were proud people, independent people, farmers who had built their lives on the strength of their own 2 hands. The idea of sharing everything, of trusting neighbors with their futures, felt like admitting defeat. But Thomas Johnson, whose wife was pregnant with their 4th child, spoke up. "What exactly are you proposing?" James laid out the idea. "Pool their land, share the equipment, divide the labor, split everything equally, not a corporation, not a business partnership, a cooperative, a family of families. We work together or we lose everything alone," James said. The conversation went deep into the night. Arguments erupted. Old grudges surfaced. Mary Henderson didn't trust the Reeves family over a fence dispute from 3 years ago. Robert Vaughn thought the whole idea was socialism. Patricia Callahan worried about losing what little they had left. But the drought didn't care about their pride. The bank didn't care about their history. And one by one, as the night wore on, they began to see the truth. Alone, they would fail. Together, they might survive. By sunrise, all 10 families had agreed. They drew up papers that week, legal documents that made them co-owners of 3 200 acres of Oklahoma land: the Turner farm, the Johnson fields, the Reeves pastures, the Callahan wheat fields, the Merritt orchards, the Henderson dairy, the Polk ranch, the Vaughn property, the Driscoll homestead, the Ketchum acres. 1 farm, 10 families, 1 chance. They called it the Red Valley Cooperative. The first year was chaos. 10 different ways of doing things, 10 different opinions about when to plant, what to plant, how to irrigate. James Turner wanted to focus on wheat. Thomas Johnson believed in diversification. Sarah Merritt pushed for an orchard operation. Robert Vaughn insisted they needed more cattle. The arguments were constant. The trust was fragile, but the drought was patient, and it taught them a brutal lesson. No single approach would work. They needed all of it. So they divided the land by what it did best. The eastern sections, closer to the creek bed, became wheat fields managed by James Turner and the Callahan family. The western pastures, with their natural grasses, became cattle country under Robert Vaughn and William Henderson. The northern acres, with their slight elevation and better drainage, became the orchard operation led by Sarah Merritt and Patricia Driscoll. The southern fields, flatter and more predictable, became the vegetable operation managed by Elizabeth Polk and Helen Ketchum. Thomas Johnson, who had a head for numbers, became the cooperative's bookkeeper. Margaret Turner, who had a gift for negotiation, handled sales and distribution. Every family contributed something. Every family had a voice. Every family shared equally in the profits and the losses. And slowly, painfully, it began to work. The drought broke in the spring of 1957, but the cooperative didn't dissolve. They had learned something valuable. Together they could weather any storm. Together they could buy equipment no single family could afford. Together they could negotiate better prices, access better markets, share the workload during harvest, and support each other during the slow seasons. By 1960, the Red Valley Cooperative was profitable. Not wealthy, not comfortable, but stable, surviving. The children grew up watching this experiment in cooperation. James Turner's son, Robert, learned to work alongside Thomas Johnson's son, Michael. They were competitors in school, rivals on the baseball field, but partners in the fields. The daughters of the cooperative, girls like Susan Henderson and Linda Merritt, learned that their futures were tied together, that success meant lifting everyone up, not climbing over each other. This was the first generation born into the cooperative. They didn't remember a time when the farms were separate, when families guarded their secrets and competed for survival. To them, cooperation was normal, expected, the way things had always been. But normal doesn't mean easy. In 1963, James Turner died of a heart attack while repairing a tractor. He was 54 years old. The cooperative held its first funeral as a true family, and they discovered something important. Leadership couldn't rest on one person. They had to be stronger than any single loss. They created a council, 7 members, elected every 3 years by the 10 families. Decisions made by majority vote. No single voice could dominate. No single family could control the cooperative. It was messy. It was slow, but it was fair. The 1960s brought new challenges. Industrialization swept through American agriculture. Corporate farms began to dominate. Small operations struggled to compete. The Red Valley Cooperative watched neighbors sell out to large agricultural companies, watched family farms become subdivisions, watched a way of life disappear across rural Oklahoma. But they had size. They had diversity. They had the strength of 10 families working as one. When wheat prices dropped, cattle prices were up. When the cattle market crashed, the orchard operation carried them through. When a late frost destroyed the fruit crop, the vegetable operation saved the year. They were never wealthy, but they were never desperate. By 1970, the second generation was taking control. Robert Turner, James's son, was 35 years old and managing the wheat operation. Michael Johnson, Thomas's son, had taken over the bookkeeping. Susan Henderson married David Vaughan, uniting 2 cooperative families. Linda Merritt's husband, Frank Carson, joined the cooperative and brought new ideas about organic farming and crop rotation. This generation faced a different challenge. The cooperative worked, but it trapped them. The children of the cooperative couldn't easily leave. Their futures were bound to the land, to the collective, to the decisions of the council. Some resented it. Some felt suffocated by it. In 1972, Robert Turner's daughter Jennifer announced she was leaving for college in Tulsa. She wanted to study law, not farming. She wanted a life beyond the red dirt and the endless cycle of planting and harvest. The cooperative faced a crisis. If the children left, who would continue the work? If the next generation abandoned the land, what had been the point of all this sacrifice? They held a meeting that lasted 3 days. Arguments erupted. Old fears resurfaced. Some wanted to force the children to stay, to make the cooperative a binding commitment across generations. Others argued that forcing people to stay would destroy everything they had built. In the end, they made a choice that seemed simple, but was revolutionary. The cooperative would support education. They would pay for college. They would invest in their children's futures. But the children had to come back for 5 years after graduation, work the land, contribute to the cooperative. Then if they wanted to leave permanently, they could. No guilt, no pressure. And if they stayed, they would be full members of the cooperative with a voice in its future. Jennifer Turner went to law school. When she graduated in 1976, she came back to Red Valley. She worked the fields for 5 years, just as she had promised. Then she made her choice. She stayed, not because she was forced to, but because she saw the value in what her grandfather had built. She became the cooperative's legal advisor, helping them navigate contracts, land disputes, and the increasingly complex world of agricultural regulation. The 1980s were brutal for American farmers. The farm crisis destroyed thousands of operations across the Midwest. Interest rates skyrocketed, land values crashed, banks foreclosed on families who had worked the same soil for generations. Suicide rates among farmers reached crisis levels. The Red Valley Cooperative survived because of one thing. They owed almost nothing. They had grown slowly, carefully, never taking on debt they couldn't manage. When other farms collapsed under the weight of mortgages and equipment loans, the cooperative tightened their belts and weathered the storm. They helped 3 neighboring farms join the cooperative during those years. Families who had mocked the idea of cooperation in the good times came begging for help when the crisis hit. The council voted each time. Not everyone was accepted, but those who were brought new land, new skills, and new commitment to the collective. By 1990, the Red Valley Cooperative included 13 families and over 4,000 acres. The third generation was coming of age. Jennifer Turner's son, Marcus, grew up with computers and the internet. He saw possibilities his grandparents had never imagined. Direct-to-consumer sales, online farmers markets, organic certification, agritourism. In 1995, Marcus Turner proposed something radical: convert part of the cooperative to organic farming. It meant 3 years without chemical fertilizers or pesticides, 3 years of lower yields, 3 years of financial sacrifice. But at the end, they could charge premium prices and access markets that industrial farms couldn't touch. The older generation resisted. They had survived by sticking to what worked, not chasing trends. But the younger generation saw the future clearly. The world was changing. Consumers wanted to know where their food came from. They wanted stories, not just products. The council voted, 8-5 in favor. The cooperative began the transition. Those 3 years were hard. Yields dropped, profits shrank. Some of the older members grumbled that the young people were destroying everything. But Marcus Turner and his cousins worked harder than they ever had, learning new techniques, building relationships with organic distributors, creating a brand around the Red Valley story. In 1998, they received their organic certification. Within 2 years, their profits had doubled. Within 5 years, they were selling directly to restaurants in Oklahoma City and Tulsa, commanding prices that conventional farms couldn't match. The cooperative had evolved again, not by abandoning their principles, but by adapting them to a new world. The turn of the millennium brought new members, young people from outside the original families who believed in the cooperative model. They brought new skills: marketing, web design, sustainable agriculture degrees, business management. The cooperative wasn't just a family anymore. It was an idea, a way of living and working that proved cooperation could succeed in a competitive world. But success brought new tensions. Some of the founding families worried they were losing control. Their grandchildren were outnumbered by newcomers. The vote that had once been predictable became uncertain. Old families who had suffered through the drought of 1956 felt like their sacrifice was being forgotten. In 2005, the cooperative faced its greatest internal crisis. A vote on whether to allow corporate partnerships split the council down the middle. Some argued that partnerships with larger food companies could bring stability and growth. Others believed it would compromise their independence and values. The debate raged for months. Families stopped speaking to each other. The Christmas gathering, a tradition since 1960, was cancelled because no one could be in the same room without arguing. Finally, Sarah Johnson, granddaughter of Thomas Johnson, stood up at a council meeting and told a story. She had found her grandfather's journal from 1956. She read aloud his account of that first meeting in James Turner's barn. The doubt, the fear, the desperate hope that cooperation might save them. They didn't agree on everything, Sarah said. They fought, they argued, but they stayed together because they knew that divided, they would lose everything. We're fighting about the wrong thing. The question isn't whether we partner with corporations. The question is whether we still believe in what brought us together. The cooperative voted no corporate partnerships. They would stay independent, even if it meant staying smaller, even if it meant growing slower. Their strength wasn't in size, it was in their commitment to each other. The financial crisis of 2008 tested that commitment. Credit markets froze, commodity prices crashed. But the cooperative had learned the lessons of 1956 and 1980. They carried minimal debt. They had diversified income streams. They supported each other through the panic. They lost money that year, but they didn't lose the land. They didn't lose each other. By 2010, the cooperative had stabilized again. The fourth generation was taking leadership roles. Great-grandchildren of James Turner and Thomas Johnson worked the same fields their ancestors had nearly lost in 1956. The land had been passed down not through inheritance, but through cooperation. Not through bloodline, but through shared commitment. In 2015, the cooperative celebrated its 60th anniversary. Over 200 people gathered in the same barn where James Turner had made his desperate proposal. 3 of the original 10 families were still involved: Turners, Johnsons, and Merritts. The others had retired or moved away, their shares distributed to remaining members according to the cooperative's bylaws. The current council president, Emily Turner, James's great-granddaughter, stood where her great-grandfather had stood and talked about legacy. Not the legacy of land or money, but the legacy of belief. The belief that people working together could achieve what individuals alone could not. The cooperative had outlived the drought that created it. It had outlived the farm crisis. It had outlived economic crashes and cultural shifts and the rise of industrial agriculture. It had outlived because it had adapted, because it had stayed true to its core principle. We survived together. Today, the Red Valley Cooperative operates over 4,500 acres of certified organic farmland. They employ 32 full-time workers and support 17 families. They sell directly to consumers through farmers markets, restaurants, and a thriving online business. They host farm tours and educational programs, teaching the next generation about sustainable agriculture and cooperative economics. The children of the cooperative grow up learning the same lesson their great-great-grandparents learned in 1956. Your success is tied to your neighbor's success. Your harvest depends on your willingness to share the work. Your future is only as strong as your commitment to the collective. The drought of 1956 lasted one summer, but the cooperation it sparked has lasted 70 years. The barn where it all began still stands on the Turner property, though it's been restored and reinforced a dozen times. Inside, on a wall near the main entrance, hangs a simple wooden plaque. It lists the names of the 10 founding families and the date, June 1956. Beneath the names, a single line: "Alone we fall, together we stand." The soil remembers everything: the rain that eventually came, the seeds that found the strength to grow, the families who refused to give up on each other. And if you drive through Red Valley today, past the wheat fields and the orchards and the grazing cattle, you might notice something unusual. The fences that divide the properties are all low, symbolic, easy to cross, because the people who work this land learned a long time ago that walls between neighbors don't protect you, they isolate you. And isolation, in the end, is the only thing you can't survive.